session. Honorable Markey, Wyndham, Judge, presiding. Please be seated, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to Department 1, People v. Durst. Mr. Durst is present with Mr. Chesnoff and Mr. DeGuerin. We have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Milius at council table. Mr. Lewin is present. Also, our jurors and alternates all are present. Are we resuming with this video at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then the video of Richard Markey, which we had begun, will now continue.
Oh, Your Honor, 1 second.
Your Honor, can I briefly approach with
Yes.
hurt my feelings.
Accept my compliment, though.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chesnoff.
And Your Honor, when you're ready, I believe we stopped at 18 minutes, and I'm going to press play.
Yes, please proceed.
When she was living in the Benedict Canyon home, what was her life like that you lived with her?
It was a struggle. I think at some point she had no money whatsoever and slid into substantial debt.
What emotion?
I think she was greatly stressed. I think sometimes unbearably so.
That's how it appeared to you based on your visits with her, your conversations with her.
Yes,
Did she talk to you about her financial situation
yes,
at that later point in her life?
yes.
Did she ever come to you for assistance?
She didn't come to me for assistance, but I offered her.
What types of things at this point in her life did you do for her?
A couple of times I took her grocery shopping, and once in a while I'd take her out for lunch.
You were aware at one point that Susan Berman was killed, is that correct?
Yes,
Did she ever tell you at any time prior to her being killed that she'd received large sums of money from you?
yes.
What did she tell you?
She had asked for and received money from a couple of different friends.
Okay. Do you know an individual named Robert Durst?
Yes, we've met
Met? How many times?
once.
We'll talk about that later. Do you recognize him in here, in this building right now?
I do.
Can you please point to him and tell the judge what he's wearing right now?
Wearing a dark suit, blue shirt.
Pointing towards Mr. Durst.
Thank you. Did Susan tell you whether she received any sums of money from the defendant
Yes,
prior to her?
yes.
Yes. What did she tell you?
Said that Bob had sent her 2 checks for a substantial amount of money.
Recall the sums.
My memory is it was $25,000 for each check.
Do you recall when she told you she received this money from the defendant in relation to her death?
Shortly before her death.
Within, would you say within the month of her death?
Yes.
How often did you observe Susan and Mella together?
Rarely.
I'm sorry?
Rarely.
How about Susan and Sarah?
Much more often, but I couldn't tell you how many times.
Sorry, the second child is Nella?
Mella, M-E-L-A.
Mella.
Full name, I think, is Pamela.
Pamela, and that's short for Pam. Mella, that's short for Pamela. All right, thank you.
And Sarah, for the court reporter, is S-A-R-E-D. Aside from seeing them together, would Susan talk about Sarah and Mella?
Frequently.
What do you mean by that?
Almost every conversation we had, there was some discussion about them.
Based on how often she talked about them, what she said about them, and her demeanor when she spoke about them, could you tell what the relationship was like between Susan, Sarah, and Mel?
She appeared to me to be a fully engaged stepmother.
Did she ever talk about how strongly she did or didn't feel towards them?
I think she expressed love for them whenever we talked about them, and very protective of them.
Did she ever express pride towards them?
Yes,
How so?
I think it's just the way that any parent would talk about their children that they're caring for. I don't remember any details.
Had you not known that these were not her natural-born children, you didn't know that.
I did know that.
I know, but I'm assuming you didn't know that. Pretend you didn't know that. Based on your interactions with her, the way she talked about them, would you have thought that they were her natural children?
Yes.
If I were to ask you what was the proudest thing in Susan's life, and included her Easy Street, included Sarah and Mella, included the Dreyfus Affair, included her writing, what would you say, include everything that you know about her, what was the proudest thing to Susan Berman?
I think possibly that her parenting of those two kids.
Did Susan ever express any feelings about Paul Kaufman? Did she talk to you about him?
Not really. I don't recall anything.
I would like to go now to the times you visited Susan Berman and her Benedict Canyon home. Okay. Stayed over a few month or several month period, whatever you testified to. You went there, I think you said once a week, is that right?
It's, my memory is something like that.
Okay. What was it like going to the front door? Describe what that experience was like, approaching Susan's home and getting inside.
Well, anytime I was coming over, even if we had an appointment to work together, I would always call ahead so that she would expect me. And when I arrived, I'd knock on the door, and she'd go to the window and pull the curtain back and look to see if it was me or not. And she'd come to the door and say hello, and I'd have to say who I was, and then she'd unlock and open the door.
So are you saying that even though she knew you were coming, when you knocked at the door, she wouldn't just automatically open the door?
Yes, that's right.
Did she always both visually confirm who you were as well as orally confirm who you were
Yes,
before she opened the door?
always.
Based on your knowledge of her and her habits and her customs, the way she handled herself with you, how security conscious was Susan Berman?
Extremely security conscious.
What about her dogs? What, if anything, what they do when you came to the door?
Markey. they bark and get upset with each other and start fighting. And she'd have to shoo them in separate rooms. Sometimes he'd be standing on the stoop for a while until she did that and finally came and opened the door.
Okay. So based on Susan's habits as you knew them, her customs as you knew them, as she interacted with you, do you believe that Susan would have unlocked and opened her door, Benedict Canyon, for a stranger who arrived in the evening?
I don't think she would open the door for anyone who she didn't know. And, she had, I would describe it, she had a phobia about things like that.
Do you remember the last time that you saw Susan Berman alive?
Yes.
Describe generally, to the best of your memory, the circumstances of that particular time you were last with.
We had dinner together, and she was on something of a roller coaster ride, having gone from really struggling financially and emotionally to now being relieved from that, partially from the money that her friends lent her, and partially because she had a big project that was fairly long in legal negotiations, and it looked like it was going to happen. She could see light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. So you say you had dinner together.
Yes.
Did you do anything else with her that evening?
Yes, after dinner we saw a movie that happened to be right next door to the restaurant.
Okay. As you sit here today, do you recall the date of this last time you saw her?
No.
As you sit here today, do you recall what year this was?
I'm not sure.
Are you familiar with the time period that Susan Berman was killed?
Yes.
How close in time was that to that death, to this outing of her?
Immediately before.
What month? You remember?
December.
It was December. You remember what night of the week it was as you sit here today?
I don't.
Do you think if you saw a movie tape recovered from Susan Berman's home, that might refresh your memory as to the date that you last saw her?
Yes.
I have a photocopy of the movie tape. May I mark this as people finished in order? 34th. Showing you what has been marked as people 34. Just take a look at that to yourself. And I'm asking a couple questions. Does that refresh your memory?
Yes.
What was the date that you were last with her?
December 22nd,
What year?
2000. 2000.
How did you get to? Where did you go to dinner in the first?
I'm forgetting the name of the restaurant, but it was on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica.
Does the Broadway Deli sound like?
Yeah, that's the restaurant.
And how did you get there?
Susan picked me up, and we drove there in her car.
You drove what kind of car?
In a Susan Trooper, I think.
Okay. And when she picked you up, where did she pick you up from?
My apartment.
Okay. And where did you guys go first?
To the restaurant on the 3rd Street Promenade.
Do you recall approximately what time it would have been that you had dinner?
No, it was normal dinner time.
What did you guys discuss during dinner?
Our lives and careers.
Okay. You were talking earlier about there was some sort of a negotiation she was having with the TV network.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Did this discussion occur over dinner?
Yes.
Okay.
When she was in negotiations, and she told me whatever the details of the negotiation were and asked my opinion on issues.
Okay. Were there other things you might have discussed as well?
Yes, we discussed
To the best of your
the usual things that friends talk about, friends, family, whatever was current in our life right at that time.
Would you discuss Susan's stepchildren, Sarah and Mella?
Yes,
Do you recall if you discussed Susan's landlady, Izenman, and
yes.
what did you guys discuss?
Susan had been essentially at war with her. She wanted to evict Susan. Susan hadn't paid the rent in a few months. And her landlord had taken steps. I don't remember specifics, but it was a confrontational situation between the two.
And based on your discussions at dinner with Susan that night, as of at least that night, was this confrontation still ongoing or had it been resolved?
I think it had been resolved.
How so?
I think the money that Mr. Durst gave to her allowed her to settle whatever claims that the landlady had made on her.
And was she going to be able to stay in her home?
I believe so.
And this is all based on what she had told you.
Yes.
After dinner, is that when you guys went to the movies?
Yes.
How did you get there?
We walked 50 feet.
Okay. Do you remember what movie you guys saw?
Yes, it was Best in Show.
Did it appear Susan enjoyed the movie?
Yes.
Do you remember approximately what time the movie got out?
I don't,
Okay.
but mid-evening, 9 or 10 o'clock.
Okay. Do you recall where you guys went after the movie?
I think that was the end of the night. She dropped me back at my apartment.
Okay. Your memory of this particular evening as to the specific date, specific details, conversations you had, specific times that things happened, the specifics exactly of where you went. Are they better today than they were back then in the year 2000?
No, I don't think so.
Were they better back when you spoke with the police in the year 2000?
Definitely.
And were you spoken to by the police at the end of December in the year 2000?
Yes.
In particular, were you interviewed by both?
Yes.
And is your memory today well enough to fully and accurately recount the specific details of exact dates, exact times, exact conversations, and exact details of what happened?
No, the memories have somewhat faded over the years.
Okay. But at least what you've testified to here today, do you have a good enough memory of those particular details to testify today truthfully and accurately?
Yes.
When you spoke with the police, Detective Coulter, end of December, year 2000, were the events, the specific details, the specific dates still fresh in your mind?
Yes.
And were you honest and truthful with the information you relayed to the police in the year 2000?
Yes.
And were you interviewed, I'm sorry, when I said in the year 2000, do you remember being interviewed by detectives other than Detective Coulter? Detective Robert, Hayes?
I remember that there were other detectives.
Let's put it this way. In the year 2000, in December, were you spoken to by some detectives?
Yes.
Were you spoken to again by detectives in January 2001?
Yes.
Okay. During both of those occasions, were the events fresh in your mind?
Yes.
During both of those occasions, were you honest and truthful in what you relayed to the police?
Yes.
So, eventually you said you went home,
Yes.
And who drove you home?
Susan.
Okay. Do you recall if she drove or if you drove her car? If you recall.
Actually, I don't remember.
Okay. Would that be one of those details that you would have to rely on what you had told the police back then?
Yes.
When you arrived at your house, what happened then?
She dropped me off in the driveway. I went up the stairs and she drove away.
Approximately what time was it the last time? Was this the last time you saw her?
Yes.
Approximately what time was it the last time you saw her? To the best of your memory.
Best of my memory, 10, 10:30.
What did she say to you last time you saw her? To the best of your memory.
At the time that she was leaving, because I got out of the car. I don't recall.
Did she say where she was going?
I don't recall specifically, but I believe she was headed straight home.
Did she tell you that she was doing anything other than going home?
No.
Did she do anything or say anything to give you any indication that she was going anywhere but home?
No.
What were you doing in the next couple of days? Do you remember?
I met my family in Las Vegas for something of a family reunion.
Okay. Talk about that in a second. Do you remember what Susan Berman was wearing the last time you saw her?
I do not.
Would that be one of the details that would have been fresh in your mind in year 2000 and 2001 when you spoke with the police?
Yes.
So would that have been one of the details that you would have been honest about when you relayed that information to the police?
Yes.
Sorry, can I have one more?
Yes.
So you went to Las Vegas?
Yes.
That weekend?
Yes.
And what happened when you came back?
Actually,
Yes.
I just had a recollection of what she said to me when she dropped me off. Because I was going to Las Vegas, she had grown up in Las Vegas, and she gave me the address of the house that they lived in. And said, if you get a chance, take a drive by and just take a look at it.
When you returned from Vegas, what happened?
There was a message on my phone machine from her manager, Niall Brunner, telling me that she was dead and that I could expect the police to be getting in touch with me.
And did the police come and get in touch with you?
Yes.
Prior to her being killed, had Susan ever discussed with you her relationship with Robert Durst?
Yes.
What did she tell you about?
She felt very close to him, very affectionate, and considered at least one of her very best friends. Sometimes I used to refer to him as being like a brother.
Did she ever discuss with you Robert Durst's wife?
Not that I recall.
Did she ever discuss with you about Robert Durst's wife having gone missing?
I don't recall vaguely. I remember something, but I couldn't be specific about it.
As you sit here today, did she ever discuss with you, to the best of your memory, anything she may have known about Robert Durst's wife?
Never specifically said anything.
Okay. Did she ever discuss anything with you about any secrets she held with Robert Durst?
She said to me at some point that she knew things that no one else knew. But I don't think the conversation went any further than that. I don't think I ever knew what she was doing.
And when she said she knew things that no one else knew, discussing with?
I don't know.
Well, in other words, she just knew things in general, or she knew things about somebody?
Of somebody, but I don't have a clear enough memory to be more specific on it.
Did you, when you were interviewed in 2001 by Detective Colton, did you tell him that 1 or 2 years before her death, while you were in a car with Susan, you were discussing Robert Durst with somebody?
I don't have a distinct memory of it.
Okay. Do you recall telling Detective Coulter in the year 2001 that in that car, Susan said, I think I'm the only person who knows what happened?
I don't remember.
Does that sound?
Yes, time's gone by and I don't have a distinct memory of it.
Okay. You sit here today, are you saying it's possible that happened, I just don't remember, or that never happened?
I think it's possible that happened, I just don't have a clear enough memory to say that it's a clear fact.
Okay. And are you saying that you don't have a clear enough memory today to fully and accurately testify about that conversation?
Yes.
When you spoke with detectives in 2001, were the events of that conversation, the details of that conversation, fresh in your mind?
I'm sure that
And at the time you spoke with detectives in 2001, can you relay that information to them? Were you truthful and honest with the police in what you said?
yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir. My name is Chip Lewis. I've got a fairly brief set of questions for you. I'm going to jump around between subjects, so if my jumping around confuses you or gives you any pause, just tell me and we'll get over it. Let's start, first subject of my inquiry is Paul Kaufman. You testified in response to Mr. Bailey's questions about your knowledge of Paul Kaufman. I want to ask you just a few questions about that. It's fair to say, is it not, that the relationship between Susan Berman and Paul Kaufman ended badly?
That's my recollection.
And it was your opinion, well-founded opinion, that he had hitched himself to her wagon in hopes that there was a big payday coming.
I don't recall that.
And Mr. Markey, in fairness to you, these events happened a long time ago.
Yes.
Back in September of 2015, do you remember meeting with members of the district attorney's office and LAPD? They interviewed you about this case.
2015?
Yes, sir, September 3rd, 2015.
I don't remember meeting with them. Possibly by phone.
Okay, telephone interview.
Yes.
You're aware they were recorded?
I don't remember.
I'm going to ask you to assume with me that they were recorded. And that what I'm about to show you is a transcript generated by the LAPD's office. Can I put a switch, Your Honor?
You may. Where do they project?
One stipulation that that's the transcript, that he was recorded as a transcript.
Please, sir.
More simply, that's the transcript that was provided at the state recording review commission.
September 3rd, 2015.
September 3rd, 2015.
So Alex of the stipulation.
No, I got it. Thank you very much, Dan. I'm going to direct you, sir, Now channeling Mr. Lewin. 29. And I'm going to go to lines 20. Oh, sorry. Let's look. Read to yourself, sir, from lines 22 to get the question in your mind, and then the answers running through the end of line 26. That refresh your memory?
Yes.
So, I'm sure well-founded opinion that Coffin had hitched his wagon to her in hopes there would be a big payday coming.
Yeah, I don't remember using those words, but I see that.
Fair enough. And when that didn't occur, he left her.
I'm sorry.
And when that didn't occur, Coffin left Susan.
Yes. I actually don't know the dynamics of who left who. I don't know how it ended, that it ended.
He was gone after the Dreyfus affair didn't come to fruition.
Yes.
Are you familiar with a lady named Kim Langford?
Yes.
Miss Langford, how many times did you meet Miss Langford?
Many times.
She was a close friend of Susan's.
Yes.
In fact, in your opinion, based on your relationship with Susan, would you say that Kim Langford and Sarah Coffin were probably closest to Susan?
Yeah, very possible.
After the memorial service you attended for Susan after her death, right?
Yes.
After that memorial service, you had dinner with Miss Langford and Bob Durst.
Lunch, yes.
And at that lunch, you learned through the conversation that Bob didn't attend Susan's memorial service.
Yes.
And do you remember in that discussion, there was stated concern that he would make it a media circus?
Yes.
Prior to, perhaps leading up to your movie and dinner with Susan, or sometime in close proximity, within a few days, a week of her death, did she tell you anything about plans that she had with Bob?
Not that I recall.
Did she mention that Bob was coming to visit?
Not that I recall.
Did she mention that she and Bob were going to San Francisco to kind of on a vacation or retreat?
Not that I recall.
Mr. Bailey ended with a discussion about a conversation in which Susan was relating, knowing things that no one else knows. You recall that discussion?
Not specifically, but I remember generally having that conversation.
And do you remember describing that conversation to the detectives 2 years ago?
I don't have a specific memory of that either.
Would the transcript help refresh your memory?
Sure.
I'm going to direct you to page 31. And let's focus, in fairness, to let you put this in context. Let's go, I should probably let you see the bottom of 30 because it bleeds over to 30. Let's start here at line 20. We'll work ourselves down to the bottom. Now, let's focus on lines 1 through 11.
Which lines do you want me to?
1 through 11. We're going to stop at 13, but I can't. And then 12 and 13. So when you spoke to these detectives in reference to the conversations they were asking about, you made it clear, line 12 and 13, at the end of this discussion, you recall Susan saying, Bobby was innocent, referring to Bob Durst.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I see that that's what I said.
That's what you said. That Bobby was innocent, correct?
Yes.
And she was referring to Bob Durst.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Your Honor, we'll pass it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alien, redirect examination.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the last line of questions Mr. Lewis was asking, what would have been your best precious memories of that particular conversation? The 2015 transcript he was showing you that interview, or back in 2001?
Back in 2001.
Okay. When you say you had lunch with Robert Durst?
Yes.
And what was the circumstances or reasons that you were having lunch with Mr. Durst?
Our mutual friend, Kim Langford, called me and said that Bob didn't want to attend the, it wasn't a funeral, I'm sorry,
Memorial service?
the memorial service at the Writers Guild Theater. But that he'd like to get together with some of her closer friends to just sort of touch base.
That Mr. Durst wanted to get together with Susan's closest friend.
Yes.
And so you had lunch with him.
Yes.
And at that lunch, did he seem to you concerned about what happened to Susan Berman?
No, I won't recall that.
What seemed to be his primary focus based on the discussions he was having?
As pertains to the case, this investigation, that he was being hounded by the district attorney from Westchester County.
So, his best friend Susan Berman died. He wants to get together with her closest friends shortly after the memorial service because he can't attend the service. And to your testimony that he's not speaking about what happened to Susan and who did this, instead he's talking about this DA in New York who's hounding him. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And this is excuse.
No objection, Your Honor.
Any objection? Excuse?
No.
Your excuse, sir. Thank you.
This exhibits?
Yes, we have a CD that will be marked as 117, a transcript that will be 117A, a stipulation log as 117B. What was previously marked as People's 11 will now be 117C. What was previously marked as People's 34 will now be 117D.
Okay, thank you. Those were marked yesterday, but that's fine. You've repeated the designations. Next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people called David Izenman.
Much appreciated. Yes. Oh, a pen. We need a pen for our juror who is taking notes. Where are they? They're in a box on the corner. There you go.
Please remain standing, sir. Stand, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please. For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
Sorry, Your Honor, there's some jurors raising their hands.
Oh, my fault. Sorry.
Please state and spell your first and last name, sir.
David Eisenman, D-A-V-I-D, Izenman, I-Z-E-N-M-A-N.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a hairdresser
And for how long have you been a hairdresser?
since 1984.
Where were you working in 1984 as a hairdresser?
I had a salon in West Hollywood called Anatra Hair.
Called what?
Anatra Hair.
Okay. How long were you at that salon?
Oh, about 7 years.
How, did you have any regular clients?
Oh, yeah.
Were you the type of hairdresser who kind of would just deal with their clients and take care of their hair and not discuss things with them, or did you form relationships with your hairdressers?
Pretty much formed a relationship with almost all of my clients.
Okay. Did you have a client named Susan Berman?
Yes, I did.
When did you start taking care of Susan's hair?
Her hairdresser got pregnant and she needed a new hairdresser, and it was about 1989. She selected me to be her new hairdresser.
Okay. And for how long did you take care of her as a client after approximately 1989?
Until 2000.
Was that the time?
Yeah, and right up until she was murdered.
All right. How often would you see her?
Every 6 weeks.
And did you have discussions with her every 6 weeks throughout that period of time when you're cutting her hair?
I would say yes.
Okay. Did Susan, during these discussions, ever discuss with you a man named Robert Durst, or maybe she referred to him as Bobby?
Yes.
How did she refer to him?
Usually Bobby.
Okay. On some occasions, did she refer to him by Robert Durst?
I don't recall.
Okay. How would, just in general, throughout the years, in particular the early portion of you knowing Susan Berman, how would she speak about him, in what terms?
I would say in glowing terms. He was almost godlike. They'd been friends for such a long time, and she was very close to him, and almost like a marriage of sort, best friends.
Okay. When you first started doing Susan's hair, just based on what you could tell from seeing her and having discussions with her, what was her financial situation like?
When I first started doing her hair,
Yeah.
she was making money, right? She was an author, and she was successful at what she did.
Did she appear to be having any financial difficulties in the beginning when you first
Not in
met?
the beginning.
In the beginning, when she wasn't having financial difficulties, and throughout that period of time that you're cutting her hair, right there. At some point in time, did that change? Did she start to have some financial difficulties?
Yes.
Right. How close towards the end of her life was that, from your perspective?
I would say the last year.
Okay. So, in the point in time from when you start cutting her hair, styling her hair, up until that last year, when things are going smooth for her financially, did she talk to you about her friend Bobby or Robert Durst with respect to any financial assistance he was providing her?
Yes.
What would she say? What kinds of things would she say during that period of time?
She would say, he's very good to me. We're like brother and sister. I never have. She gave me the impression that he would always take care of her.
Okay. And did she at some point tell you he's always going to take care of me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Would she indicate to you that he would give her money specifically, or did she not say that during that period?
If she needed money, she said, Bobby will send me a check.
Okay. So I want to talk about the point in time when Susan's financial situation changed. You started noticing a difference in her financially, is that right?
Yes.
Financially, was she able to pay for her styling and her haircut?
There came a point where she could not pay me, but I told her not to worry, that when she got up on her feet and was working again, she could start paying me again.
How long of a period approximately was it where you were?
Not being paid?
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you remember?
Well, it was a few years.
I'm sorry?
It was a few years. I wasn't getting paid. And she would say to me, you know, I'm expecting a check from Bobby and I'll give you some money as soon as I get that.
Okay. Did you see Susan Berman within months prior to her death?
Yes.
When's the last time you saw her? Do you remember?
I was supposed to see her in like 2 days from when I found out she was murdered.
Okay. Prior to that?
Prior to that, probably 5 weeks.
Okay. Do you remember having discussions with her at that last time you saw her about her financial situation?
Yes.
Did you notice any change in the way she spoke about Bobby and how his generosity towards her at that point in time, your last time you spoke with her? Was there a change in her attitude towards Bobby?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe for the jury, please, what that change in her attitude was towards Bobby?
She was becoming more desperate in that she couldn't get in touch with him. And she was having a very bad time financially, and she was expecting a check from him, and it wasn't showing up. And she wanted to pay me, of course. I think she was embarrassed because, you know, everybody has pride. But I told her not to worry. But but she became more and more distressed.
Did you remember her telling you that the money wasn't coming fast enough from Bobby?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was in this last discussion you had with her?
Yes.
And when she was saying that, the money's not coming fast enough from Bobby, what was her demeanor like? Was it normal? Was it different?
The laughs were gone. I mean, I could tell she was under a lot of stress, and she was very upset, and she didn't know where she was going to get her rent money and things like that.
Did you say the laughs were gone? The laughs?
The laughs were, yes. We always had a good relationship and a lot of, fun conversations. But as it got toward the end of her time with me, she was depressed and anxiety and...
The laughs were gone.
Yeah.
When she was talking about Bobby and how the money wasn't coming fast enough, you say it wasn't a pleasant, laughable conversation.
No.
You recall previously saying
It was a surprise. Mm-hmm.
You recall previously saying she was agitated at Bobby.
Yes.
Did it appear to you that way? She was agitated at him because the money
Yes.
wasn't coming fast enough?
Yes.
Did Susan tell you in this discussion about not getting this money and this check what she was afraid was going to happen to her?
She referred to herself as destitute, and she was afraid of becoming a street person. You know.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Lewis, you may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Morning, sir. I only have a few areas. I think it'll be fairly quick and painless. I sometimes struggle to be heard and to hear others with these masks on. So if you don't hear me, please ask me to speak up. Okay?
Yes.
And one of the things, the court reporters here are working very hard to take everything down. We have to audibly answer. I can tell that you're answering, but your audible answer will be appreciated. Okay. As I understand your testimony, and in fairness, I've had the opportunity to review your interview with the prosecutor, so I'm very familiar with what you've had to say. Basically, you had an 11-year relationship with Ms. Berman. Is that right? 89 to 2000?
Well, I knew her at the salon for a number of years before I became her hairdresser.
But your very close relationship took a while until you became her personal hairdresser.
Yes.
And in fairness to you, Mr. Eisenman, you had a lot of intimate conversations with Ms. Berman.
Yes.
She shared a lot of information with you.
Yes.
Y'all had quite a few things in common too, didn't you?
Yes.
You had family members that were originally from Sioux City, Iowa.
That's correct.
You were both of Jewish faith and background.
Half Jewish. Our mothers were both Gentile.
Both had siblings named Gladys.
Yes.
A number of other things that had happened in y'all life were some similarities, correct? So, in essence, she really opened up to you, didn't she, Mr. Eisenman?
Yes.
You knew about her very tumultuous relationship with Mr.
Yes.
You knew about Uncle Chicky.
Yes.
Bless you. You were aware of her formative years in her life in Vegas.
Yes.
You were aware of her relationship with Sarah Kaufman.
Yes.
And in fact, you were quite disappointed in some of the things Mr. Kaufman would say about Susan.
Yes.
There's an old saying that some of my older co-counsel turned me on to. And if I get this wrong, tell me. Go back to sleep. Only your hairdresser really knows.
That's
Familiar
right.
with that? Are you familiar with that term?
Yes, sir.
I believe it was a famous commercial.
Only your hairdresser knows for sure.
That's appropriate for the relationship that you shared with Ms. Berman.
I would say yes.
I want to turn, Mr. Eisenman, to the last few months of your relationship with Ms. Berman. You shared with Mr. Balian the fact that she seemed quite agitated with Mr. Durst in those months leading up to her death.
Yes.
And the source of her agitation was that the Bobby taking care of her, the money that she was expecting to come was not coming quickly enough, in her opinion.
That's correct.
And in fact, she was quite embarrassed by the fact it had been a long time since she had paid you for your very good work.
Yes.
And in fact, you, given Miss Berman's hair color and her situation, you needed to put your magic hands on her hair every 4 or 5 weeks to make sure the roots were
That's correct.
as she wanted them, right?
Correct.
All right. So if I understand this correctly, Mr. Eisenman, you learned about Miss Berman's unfortunate death from your sister.
Yes.
Your sister called you, I think, a couple days after the Christmas time in 2000, right?
Yes.
Informed you that she'd seen a Susan Berman in the obituary, and from there you learned the very sad news that she had in fact been murdered.
I didn't think it was the same person, so I called the mortuary and they had a family member call me.
And you later got a call confirming, in fact, unfortunately, it was your
Yes.
Susan Berman.
Yes.
Now, if we just do the rough math for me, you were to see her in the coming days, you recall in your appointment book, you sometime around probably the 27th to the 28th.
Somewhere, yeah.
That's fair enough. We'll use that as our date. You would have seen Miss Berman given your tender care on her roots 4 or 5 weeks before that.
Yes.
So I'll just pick, we'll go 5 weeks, November the 18th. I want to ask you a question in fairness to you, Mr. Eisenman. Would you be surprised to learn that Ms. Berman had in fact received a very large check from Mr. Durst prior to you seeing her the last time?
I don't recall the last time she gave me a check.
It would have been well in advance of the last time that you took care of her. I think you said it'd been a few years.
I hadn't charged her for a few years, and she would say, Bobby's going to send me a check, and when he does, I'll give you some money on...
Fair enough. So, and Charles, if you could put that up for me. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Can you read the date of that check for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Eisenman?
November 9.
And I think Mr. Balian will agree with me that per stipulation, this is November 9th of 2000.
That's right.
Okay.
You didn't know about that, did you?
It's the date is odd. It says 11/9.
Yes, sir. That's why I asked Mr. Balian to confirm. Not trying to trick you. You've been very fair to me. This is, in fact, November 9th of 2000. We've seen the check negotiated. Mm-hmm. To Susan Berman.
Yes, it is.
Well, let's discuss a few other things that Ms. Berman never mentioned to you. She never mentioned anything to you about Kathy Durst's disappearance, did she?
No.
She never mentioned a word about helping Bobby out, providing an alibi, nothing like that. True?
No. No.
She never even brought any of the things up. You had to learn about all of these things through your own research and the like after the fact. True?
Not necessarily. She brought him up a number of times in conjunction with what was going on with her life. And
right. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear there, Mr. Eisenman. She never brought up anything about Mrs. Durst's disappearance, her involvement, or Mr. Durst's involvement to you, correct?
No, that's correct.
During all those intimate conversations, all those years, not a word about those subjects.
Not a word.
My last area, Mr. Eisenman, now you had to proactively take some steps to have the opportunity to share your very relevant knowledge. Is that true? The police didn't come to you, for instance, right?
No.
You had to reach out and take a number of steps so that the information that you shared with us could be shared. True?
Yes. Well, I noticed something was a little off on the show, Jinxed, and I emailed the producer and I said, I forget what it was, but I said, you have it backwards. And they called me.
You had to email Mr. Smerling, one of the producers of the TV show, right?
I believe that's who it was.
And through that process of your initiation, you were later given the opportunity to speak to these fine folks, prosecutors, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on March 5th of 2015, they had a very pleasant, free-flowing interview with you, true?
Yes.
During that interview, you had some very insightful things to say based on your own work, didn't you? Well, let me be specific. That's not fair. You had a question for the prosecutors relative to the Morris Black, the Galveston case, right?
Yes.
And you asked the prosecutors if the ballistics from the Galveston case had been compared to Miss Berman's case, correct?
Yes.
They wouldn't answer you, would they?
Well, no, but I figured out why.
When you asked if the ballistics matched, they wouldn't answer you.
Well, they couldn't answer me.
Well, I can. I'll tell you they didn't match.
Objection, that's improper.
Yeah. Don't-
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Eisman, did you want to know the answer to that question?
Juries to disregard the statements of counsel, they're not evidence.
Your Honor,
Okay.
we're more than happy to, Mr. Lewis wants.
No, you
We'll
stop.
stipulate that the ballistics
No,
don't match. It's
not
just
now.
an improper question.
Mr. Eisman, in fairness to you, did you ask that question?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, redirect.
Oh, are we going to mark the exhibit?
I thought it was already in evidence.
Not yet, it will be.
Okay.
It's not marked? Okay, let's mark it.
I'll mark it. I'll mark it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, redirect.
Yes, please, thank you. The check, the front of the check. Well, I don't have it in, I have a one-page document.
Front and back of check or just
Yes,
front?
front and back check. It's a
Okay.
photocopy. I'll provide the actual hard copy at the break for the court.
And our number is 118? 118?
So, Mr. Eisenman, counsel asked you some questions about Susan Berman last seeing you approximately then on November 18th, right?
It could have been somewhere in that area.
Okay. And then he showed you a check that was dated November 9th. I guess the suggestion being that she actually had these funds and didn't pay you, I guess. You know the questions I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So this check, what are we marking this one? Sorry.
118.
118.
118. Showing you people's 118. This check was written on, purportedly, based on the date on the check, November 9th. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you don't know when this check was actually placed in the mail to Susan Berman. Is that fair?
That's fair.
And you don't know how long it took the check to actually be delivered to Ms. Berman. Is that fair?
That's fair.
And you don't know how long it took Susan Berman to actually cash the check, although I suppose you would assume she did it pretty quickly based on what you knew about her. Is that fair?
Yes.
I'd like to highlight or blow up the bottom portion of this check. I mean, the back of the check.
Yeah.
And if we could zoom in on the date it was cashed there. Does that look to you like it was cashed approximately 11/21/2000?
I'm looking for,
Yeah, hold on, let me. You see where it says WFBLACA
yes, I can see.
1121200?
Yes.
Okay. So as you sit here, you don't know when this check was cashed, do you?
No.
And if it was cashed in November 21st of the year 2000, that certainly would be after the last time you saw her. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Additional questions?
Briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Eisman, it goes without saying, Ms. Berman didn't call you to tell you that she'd gotten $25,000, did she?
You wouldn't.
And this is the same lady you've been taking care of for many years, right?
Yes.
And who hadn't paid you in many, many months.
Correct.
Thank you kindly, sir. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Brilliant. Anything else?
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. No. Yes, he may be excused.
Thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
Your next witness?
People call Detective Roberts.
solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
Brad Roberts, B-R-A-D, R-O-B-E-R-T-S.
You may proceed, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your current occupation?
I'm retired from the Los Angeles Police Department.
How long have you been retired?
A little over 14 years.
What was your occupation back in the year 2000?
I was a homicide detective working West LA Division.
And for how many years had you been a homicide detective?
All total, right at 15 years.
Sorry?
15 years.
Okay, so as of 2000, you'd been doing it for about 15 years?
At that time, 7 years.
As a homicide detective?
Yes.
Were you a police officer before you were a homicide detective?
I worked other parts of being a detective for 5-6 years and a police officer before that.
Okay. I'm going to take you back to December 24th of the year 2000. What was your assignment on that particular date?
I was working homicide West LA.
And when you say homicide in West LA, what does that mean? What were your primary duties?
My duty was to investigate murders, go to the crime scene once called in, and investigate the crime scene and follow up on all evidence and leads, and hopefully lead myself to a successful conclusion.
Okay. And when you say for West LA, did you investigate all homicides that had occurred in the West Los Angeles area?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you some photographs. Actually, before I do that, on December 24th of the year 2000, prior to that date, had you ever heard of a woman named Susan Berman?
No, I had not.
Did you know who she was?
No.
Prior to December 24th of the year 2000, did you know who Robert Durst was?
No, I did not.
Did you ever heard his name prior to that date?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything prior to that date, December 24th, year 2000, about any missing persons case involving Robert Durst's wife on the East Coast?
No, I did not.
So on December 24th of the year 2000, did you respond as the lead investigator to 1527 Benedict Canyon in the city and county of Los Angeles?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember what time you arrived at the scene?
2:50 in the afternoon.
Okay. And prior to testifying here today, you're testifying about things that happened a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
At the time these events occurred, did you take notes and write reports?
That's correct.
And prior to testifying here today, did you review those notes and reports to refresh your recollection on the events that transpired?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so when you say you arrived at 2:50 in the afternoon, I assume that's something you know now, not because you have this fantastic memory. It's because you reviewed your reports and notes. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I have a stack of 7 photographs, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm going to show you what's already been marked as People's 31E 96. Previously been marked in this trial as People's 31E. Is this the front door area of this residence that you responded to, 1527 Benedict Canyon?
Yes, it is.
All right. And when you arrived there at that time, who was on scene?
There was patrol officers there, Some command staff, I believe, was there, and that was it.
Okay. Had the paramedics already been in and out of that house before you arrived?
That happened before I got there.
All right. So was the crime scene generally secured prior to your arrival, based on what you saw when you arrived?
Yes.
Did it appear that it had been sealed off with crime scene tape, that address?
Yes.
And did it appear, other than emergency personnel and law enforcement personnel, that no one else had been permitted to enter or exit prior to your arrival?
That's correct.
Now, I assume you don't know what was or was not disturbed by emergency personnel as they were attending to the victim, is that correct?
No, I don't.
All right. But as far as you could tell, did it appear that anything had been disturbed prior to your arrival?
No, not at all.
Okay. Did you check the windows of this particular residence?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe for the jury the condition of the windows?
They were all locked. The screens were in place. Did not look like anything was open at all.
I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Yes.
I couldn't hear the last part.
Yes.
You said they were all locked and the screens were what?
The screens were in place. No damage to them. Everything seemed normal.
Okay. Your Honor, I have a photograph. May I mark this as People's 119?
Yes.
It's going to come up there on the screen in front of you. I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 119. Does this fairly and accurately depict the condition of these windows when you arrived with the screens there?
Yes.
And are you saying that all the other windows, exterior windows to this residence, were in a similar state of security?
Yes.
With the screens and being shut, etc.?
Yes.
Okay. Now you say that the windows were all screens intact, locked. I'm assuming it wouldn't be impossible to push one of them open or slide one of them open, remove the screen and get in, right?
I'm sure that's possible.
Okay. But at least when you arrived, had it appeared that that had been done as of the moment in time that you arrived?
They were all closed, locked, and screens in place.
Okay. When you arrived, the back door was open, is that right?
That's right.
The door that leads into the kitchen?
Excuse me?
The door that leads into the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay. Did you check all of the entry points to that home, windows and doors, all ways to enter that home? Did you check them for any signs of forced entry?
Yes, I did.
And did you find any signs that someone had tried to force their way into that home?
There was no evidence of that at all.
And what types of signs do you look for as a homicide detective?
It would be pry marks, the kicked-in door, door jambs split open, locks pried. None of that was in place there.
Okay. So based on your investigation, did it appear that anyone had tried to force their way inside this home?
No one forced their way in there.
All right. When you arrived, were there some packages in the front door, by the front door on the outside?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 31E again. I have a bunch of photos, and I'm also going to be using some actual other types of evidence that we can't project. So with the court's permission, I'll use the wool.
It's exactly. Yes, very good. Yes, yes, you may.
Yeah. showing what's been marked as People's 31E. Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict the packages that were by the front door?
It is.
All right. And was there also a note slid underneath the front door?
Yes, there was.
And if I show you what's been marked as People's 31JJ, does that fairly and accurately depict where that note was located when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Did you eventually recover that note and book it as evidence?
Yes, I did.
All right. Can you describe for the jury briefly the condition of the interior of those premises?
I'm sorry?
Can you describe for the jury just the condition, the overall condition of the inside of that home?
I will say the house was not ransacked, but it was very dirty. The things were scattered about, clothes, towels on the floor, miscellaneous papers spread out, but it did not appear to be ransacked.
And when you say ransacked, was any furniture turned over?
No.
Did it appear that anything was knocked over off of shelves, etc.?
No, there was not.
Did it appear anything was knocked off of countertops?
No.
Did it appear any drawers were left open as if someone was rummaging through them?
No, there was not.
All right. So did you see yourself any signs that there actually been a struggle inside this home?
There was not.
Did you look around the home to see if there were items of value inside the home?
Yes, I did.
And was there?
I did not find anything of extreme value inside the house.
Okay. Did you notice any obvious items such as TVs, computers, etc., taken from the home?
They were all there.
They were what?
There was TV there. There was a computer on the desk. The victim's purse was sitting on the countertop with all her ID, credit cards, and money in the wallet.
I'm going to show you People's 31O. Do you see the black item on the kitchen countertop?
Yes, I believe that was her purse.
All right, let me show you a more close-up photo. People's 31P.
Yes, that was her purse.
Is this the purse you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
And does this photo fairly and accurately depict where this purse was located when you arrived?
Yes.
And are you saying that you actually searched the inside of that purse?
Yes, I did.
Did you find Susan Berman's ID?
Yes, I did.
It was inside?
Excuse me?
It was in there?
It was in there.
Did you find Susan Berman's credit cards?
Yes.
Were they in there?
Yes.
Did you find cash inside that purse?
Yes.
Did it appear to you anyone had gone through that purse?
Not at all.
I'm going to show you what's previously been marked as People's 31Y. Does this fairly and accurately depict where you found Susan Berman's body when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
And does this fairly and accurately depict the clothing she was wearing when you arrived?
Yes.
All right. So she was wearing this white T-shirt and purple sweatpants?
Yes.
31I?
Yes. Were you present when the coroner investigator showed up?
Yes, I was.
And were you present when the coroner investigator lifted up her shirt?
Yes.
Was she wearing a bra?
No, she was not.
Were you present? Was she wearing underwear, undergarments?
She was not.
Okay. So no underwear, no bra, sweatpants, white T-shirt, no socks. Is that right?
That's correct.
The blood surrounding the back of the victim's head when you got there, was it wet or dry?
Dry.
Did you recover? Right then. You searched the inside of this home?
That's correct.
Did you locate any weapons inside this home?
I did not find one at all.
Did you find, are you familiar with what a shell case is?
Yes.
Okay. And is a shell case, we've already had testimony on this, but is it the part of a bullet that's ejected from a semi-automatic firearm after the gun is fired?
Yes, it was.
Is that what it is, a shell
Yes.
case?
Yes.
Did you find a shell case in this home?
Yes.
showing you what's been marked as People's 31HH. Do you see that placard? It says
Yes.
the number 1?
Yes,
Is that adjacent to where you observed the shell case when you arrived?
yes,
I'll show you a close-up. People's 31II. Is that a close-up of the shell case?
it is.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict where this shell case was located when you arrived?
It is.
What caliber bullet was that?
9mm.
Did you send that shell case out to be examined forensically for fingerprints?
Yes.
And were there any fingerprints found on that shell case?
No, there wasn't.
So in the years you've had experience as a homicide investigator, have you sent out many items such as shell cases out for fingerprinting?
It was standard procedure. I can say with certainty that not once ever did I recover a fingerprint off of the casing.
So does that mean no one ever touched that casing?
It's, like I said, it was always done, but
Are you saying it was not uncommon not to be able to get a fingerprint off a shell case?
no, it's very common not to get one.
Okay. I think I already asked you, but in case I didn't, you said you searched the home and you didn't find any weapons inside the home?
There was none.
Okay. Did you conduct some interviews of neighbors?
Yes,
Was one of the neighbors John Power?
yes,
Sandra Garfield?
excuse me?
Sandra Garfield?
Yes,
This, the bullet case you recovered and booked it into evidence as item 1?
yes,
The note under the front door, you recovered it and booked it as item 2?
yes, sir.
And did you recover anything off the dining room table indicating what Susan may have been doing that evening prior to being shot?
Yeah.
Or around
Yes,
the time she was killed?
Yes, on the dining room table, there was a stub for a movie pass.
Did you recover that?
Yes,
Did you book it into evidence as
Yes.
item number 3?
yes, I did.
I have an envelope with the number 2 on it. May I mark this as People's 120?
120.
And I have a smaller envelope. On the front it says movie ticket on dining room table, number 3. May I mark this as People's 121?
Yeah.
I'm writing a
Tell me,
121 on
what
it.
is that again? It's a...
A small coin envelope?
Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right. So, People's 120. First of all, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you this envelope 120. You see the writing on there? It says number 2.
Yes, that's my writing.
All right. And is this the envelope you placed this item into when you booked it that day?
Yes,
And showing you People's 121. Do you recognize that writing?
yes, I do.
Whose writing is that?
That was my partner's writing, Detective Hayes.
Okay. Was he working with you while you were booking all the evidence in this case?
Yes, he was.
All right. And is this the envelope where he placed the movie stuff?
Yes,
So I'm opening People's 120. Is this the note that you saw shoved under the front door?
yes,
I'm going to place it back inside the envelope you're on. And I'm opening this People's 121 envelope. I'm removing the contents. Is this the movie stub, ticket stub that was found on Susan Berman's dining room table?
it is.
I'm going to place it back inside the coin envelope you're on. I have another photograph showing Susan Berman from a different angle. May I mark this as People's 122?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 122. Is this another photo that fairly and accurately depicts the condition of Susan Berman when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Do you see how next to her there's a newspaper next to her left hand?
Yes.
Okay. Did you look and see what the date of that newspaper was?
It was marked December 22nd.
Of the year 2000?
Yes.
Okay. I have a photograph. May I mark this as People's 123?
Yes.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict the condition of her desk
Yes.
when you arrived?
Yes, it was.
I have a photograph landmark as People's 124.
Yes.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately depict a stack of books that she had in her living room when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
And the one on the right is the front of the book. The one on the left, is that the book flipped over, the back of it?
I believe so, yes.
I have a photograph landmark this as People's 125. Are these all items that Susan Berman had on her wall?
Yes.
At some point on the 25th, the 24th of December, did you stop your investigation and leave the premises?
One more time, please.
At some point on the 24th, did you leave Susan Berman's house?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go back to continue your search on the 25th of December?
At the house, no.
No. I can guess why not, but
Good guess.
is it because it was Christmas?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go back on the 26th?
Yes, I did.
So on December 26th of the year 2000, did you go back to continue a search of the residence?
Yes, I did.
All right. And from the filing cabinet in the living room next to her desk, did you recover an envelope containing photographs?
Yes.
I don't see. Did you book those as item 6?
Yes.
May I approach? And this was an envelope previously before the pandemic broke, that some photographs were taken out of it and already marked as exhibits. For the record.
Yes.
Do you recognize the writing on that?
Yes, that's mine.
That's yours?
Yes.
All right. And I'm just going to remove one more photograph from this envelope of photographs. And may I mark this photograph that I just took out of it as People's 126?
Yes.
So was this one of the photographs that Susan Berman had in this envelope full of photographs that you removed from her her filing cabinet?
Yes, it is.
All right. Did you recover various other miscellaneous items from that filing cabinet on that date?
Yes, I did.
A wedding invitation.
Excuse me?
A wedding invitation.
Yes.
Some videotapes.
Yes.
A script for something called Sin City.
Yes.
Another movie script.
Yes.
Did you recover a reward poster?
Yes.
And did you book that as item 12?
Yes.
I have a rolled up poster with a post-it on it that says number 12. May I mark this poster as People's 127?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
First of all, let me show you the posted on here. You recognize the writing?
Yes, it is.
Whose is that?
Excuse me?
Who's writing?
No, it's my writing.
Okay. So this is what another item you recovered from that filing cabinet?
Yes.
This one's going to be tricky, Your Honor. Want to help? Sure. Let's go down. All right. Okay, it says reward $8,000 wanted for holdup and post office burglary. And under the photograph on the left is a photo with the caption reads Dave Berman, alias David the Jew.
Yes.
Was this a reward poster that Susan Berman was keeping at her house in her filing cabinet?
Yes.
Did you recover from her desk her computer?
Yes, I did.
And did you book that as item 18?
Yes, I did.
Did you eventually take that computer to your LAPD forensic laboratory to have it examined, the hard drive?
Yes, I did.
All right. I want to take you now, and by the way, all of these items that you booked, did you book them all under LAPD internal case number 00-0825485?
Yes.
I want to take you to December 29th of the year 2000. Okay? So on that date, are you still the lead investigator on the case?
Yes, I was.
Were you contacted by somebody? You remember?
Did I what again?
Were you contacted by somebody on that date from a different police agency, Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And what did they tell you?
But the detective from Beverly Hills PD that told me that he had learned about the murder of Susan Berman and that he had received a letter with a note inside, or an envelope with a note inside of it.
Okay.
He thought was going to be of interest to me.
All right. Did you eventually get that from the Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And did you look at it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can I have 21 and 22? Did you book the letter as item 21 and the envelope as item 22?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's start with item 22, the envelope that the letter came in. May I approach?
Yes.
I have a evidence item envelope labeled number 22. May I mark this as People's 128?
Yes.
And I have another evidence envelope with number 21 on it. May I mark this as People's 129?
Yes.
Yep. These are still sealed. Is the clerk have scissors I can borrow?
Yes. I'm wondering, how are you doing for, I see we're getting close to 11. You're okay for, but for a logic, we need to take a break soon, so you can do it now, or you want to, is now a time, or would you rather do this first? You may have,
It's up to you.
within 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you first what's been marked as People's 128. Recognize the writing on there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is that your writing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is this the envelope that you received from Beverly Hills Police Department?
Yes.
And People's 129, you recognize the writing on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is that your writing?
Yes.
Okay. And Is this the letter that was inside that envelope they received from Beverly Hills Police Department?
I believe so, yes.
Use scissors to just open these. All right. Just put them on the envelope. When you received this letter and envelope, did you take either a picture or a photocopy of it?
Yes, I did.
Which one?
Both.
You took a picture of the outside of the envelope or just a photocopy?
I took a photocopy of it.
Okay. I have a one-page photocopy. Can I mark this as
130.
People's 130?
Yeah.
Showing you what is marked as People's 130. Is this the photocopy that you took?
Yes, it is.
And the top portion is the outside of the envelope?
Yes.
And the bottom portion is a photocopy of the letter that was inside that envelope?
That's correct.
Now, did you take this photocopy before this item was eventually sent out for fingerprinting and other forensic testing?
Did I do what with it?
Take this photocopy before you
Yes, I
sent
did.
off the evidence for examination?
Yes, I did.
Sometimes does examining items forensically for fingerprints change the appearance of an item?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Does sometimes using chemical processing on an item change the appearance of an item?
Yes, it does.
Does sometimes taking swabs for DNA analysis require cutting portions of items apart or off?
Yes.
Okay. But this photocopy was taken before you did any of that?
Yes.
Or you had any of this done, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so
This
let's
is-
take our break until 11:15, ladies and gentlemen. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case, and do not discuss your testimony with any other witness. Everybody step down. Thank you.